What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Indie Inkwell. My name is JJ. I'm one of your two co-hosts, and that other co-host is Michael, aka Mike, aka Longbox Entertainment. Whatever you want to call him, just don't make him late for dinner, and his wife will be okay with it. How you doing, man?
That is facts, especially the last part. What's up, brother? It's good to be back. Look at that. A second one in a row, man. Let's
I
let's hope we
know
keep
it's
this up.
crazy. Your work has not kidnapped you away this week. Normally they give
Bro.
you to us for a week and then you get taken away from us.
I think hopefully it's because we're done with the holiday season. So now we can,
All
things
the
are like
higher ups
smooth.
vacations are over, so
Yes, yes. The work is actually divided now.
right. Well, real quick before we get into today's show and bring on today's guest, we do have to mention the sponsor of today's episode, and that is Into the AM. If you don't know who they are, let me tell you. Into the AM is a team of creators and artists with the shared vision of seeing clothing as a canvas for self-expression and what drives you. And since 2012, they've been developing premium apparel with the goal of elevating self-expression while providing unmatched comfort no matter where your passions may take you. They have everything from simple, basic tees and hoodies. They have boxer briefs. They have hats. They have beanies. They have trucker hats. They have socks. They have pretty much anything you could ever need. But what sold us on them was their graphic t-shirts. Right now, they have a site-wide 40% sale. 40% off sale going on, excuse me. But if you use our code JJ Comics at checkout, you can save another 10% off of your order. Plus, they already have bundle deals. 3 for $61.95. You add on a 40% discount for that. You add on another 10% discount for that using code JJ Comics at checkout. And you're saving a lot of money. You could get some of these things delivered for $5-10. I'm just saying. If you need to update your wardrobe. But anyway, now that that is out of the way, let's bring on our guest today, writer, indie comic creator, also editorial director for Scout Comics. Please, everybody, welcome Andrea Lorenzo Molinari. Did I pronounce all of that correctly?
Very close, Andrea.
Andrea.
But
Okay. Yeah. I always I know you've told me that before, but it looks like Andre, but then it also looks like it's. I apologize.
It's all right. Trust me. It's been an issue. Yeah.
So how you doing, man? I know the last time we talked was probably a few months ago before the convention circuit really kicked up. How tired are you now?
Well, I'm actually, I had a Christmas break and I just returned from New Orleans for my first convention of 2024. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, New Orleans is a great city.
Where you went to the Fan Expo?
Yes, Fan Expo New Orleans.
I was there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see you, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was in Artist Alley. We had a front, an end cap thing. It was pretty good size. Right across from the artist, facing some of the artists. And ironically enough, one of the artists was one of our cover artists, Carrie Nord. He did a cover for us for one of the books I edited called Count Dante. And it was kind of cool because I brought the cover. I had a bunch of his covers because it's my favorite one of that particular series. And so I brought it over and had him autograph them for us. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Real nice guy. Really nice guy. Very talented.
I think everybody you guys have over there at Scout is extremely talented. I don't see any mediocre products coming out of there.
Thanks. I appreciate it. We work really hard at it. There's a lot of effort that goes in. I can speak from an editorial point of view is every issue gets 3 passes, 3 editorial passes, 2 copy edits and a proofread. So, we put a lot of intentionality into producing high quality books because I tell people this all the time. I'm not interested in selling one book to you. I'm interested in selling a brand, and that you look at Scout Comics and know, well, I don't know if I know much about that particular title, or I don't know if I'll like it or not, but I've read Scout books in the past and they're well crafted. They're good stories. The art's excellent.
And that's literally how you guys drew me in.
Oh, yeah.
I found you randomly during the pandemic on a comic store shelf, and I got hooked immediately. It was Knights of the Cadillacs was the first one I found.
Yeah,
and then it was Corset, and then it just kind of went from there.
That's an exciting title because Sony actually is backing that.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, watch for this rollout coming in 2024.
Because
The
they just had a
company,
spin-off book too, didn't they?
oh yeah, Lipstick Clicka is basically, for those of you who don't know of it, Night of the Cadillacs is it's a vampire story, but they're vampire gangs from an alternate world. And every so many years, a portal opens, and these gangs come into our world and feed and take the blood back into their world. The problem is that the blood is being diluted, like like a drug. Imagine like basically the blood is treated like drug trafficking, and the blood is being cut and diluted, and that's having an adverse effect on the vampire population in that world. And of course, there are all these, all this drama and tension between these various opposing gangs, and there's the main kingpin that's trying to hold this all together. And anyway, there's going to be multiple spin-offs coming this year in 2024. Of course, we're already seeing Lipstick Clicka, which is a 3-part that's rolling out, and there's going to be Papa Duke, Stitches, and Killtown. Stitches and Killtown are both additional gangs, and Papa Duke is the kind of the kingpin figure. So that series will focus on him. Each of those series will have a 3-issue run. So, but there's a lot going on with that particular title.
No, that's sweet, awesome. Now I can say I found it before everybody else.
And it's known, that particular series is well known for excellent covers. They do a lot of Mark Pryor covers. And if you haven't seen his work, I mean, it's very distinctive. It's like, I would describe it as the kind of thing you would see in like fine arts galleries, that type of thing. But he's an amazing talent. So yeah. Anyway, other than that, nothing going on with that title.
We can plug whatever you want to plug, man.
Well, I work with a lot of titles for Scout, so there's a long list of books we can talk about. So
that's kind of what happened when Nicole DeAndrea came on. She edits a lot of stuff for you guys too, and she like every time she comes on, she also ends up talking about like 5 other books.
Yeah, now that's the way it works when you're an editor. Is you have your fingers in a lot of different projects, and just really, just you feel like you're part of the team on so many different creative adventures that you're ranging all over from sci-fi to romance to to horror, whatever. It's a lot of fun.
And that's like another great thing. Like, guys, if you don't watch any of my other videos, go to my YouTube channel after this interview, and there's a video with my top 5 indie publishers of the year. Scout Comics came in first, and there's a reason for that, and that's because of the variety you guys have. Like, that alone is like, you can literally recommend Scout to anybody.
True. There's so many different genres.
Yeah, what we're really doing, to be honest, is just looking for great stories. That's the goal. So.
And even down to the one-shots you guys released, they're great.
He's an artist with Caliber Comics, actually. When I started out with Caliber, I met him. He's a very talented artist. He's from Arizona. I just saw him pop into the chat, if I can get it out.
So every good comic book character has an origin story. What is your origin story? How did you get into comic books as a kid, or was it not as a kid? Did you get into them a little bit later on? That's kind of a more frequent one I've been hearing lately. And then kind of how did you decide you were going to get into the industry yourself?
Okay, so when I was a kid, you were buying comic books on the spinner rack in the drugstore. So this would have been in like the early to mid 70s is when I first saw them. And as a kid, you're just, these colorful books with superheroes, and it's just, there's literally nothing that could possibly be cooler than that. And I remember that my dad would give me a couple quarters or something, and I'd have to choose, like I could buy like 2 books or maybe 1 book, and have to decide what it was going to be. And a lot of times I really like those books, like The Brave and the Bold, when I was a kid, because, you have more than one story. You have Batman, who was my favorite growing up. And he's teamed up with somebody, usually Green Arrow, not usually, but many times Green Arrow through that series. And he was also another character I loved. But you also would have like a kind of a short story at the end with another character, or 2 even, like an Atom story, or Atom and Hawkman, short adventure. So it was like squeezing out as much adventure as you could possibly get from one comic book. So that was kind of my origin story in terms of experiencing comic books for the first time. And then, in high school, I kind of dropped out of comics because back in the early 80s, that was a guaranteed way to never get a girlfriend.
Right.
At all. I mean, it was, you read
You ask
comics.
certain people, it's
Wow,
still a
you're gonna be
guaranteed way
celibate
not
for an
to, but
awful
you know.
Yeah,
long
some
time.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of go through that. The way we drop out of the hobby for a little bit, and then we
Mhm.
find our way back.
Sure. And so anyway, when I went to college, this would have been in fall of 85. And that dates me right there. But fall of 85, I went back to college or went to college. And my roommate, his name is Eric Picard, but he was from Rhode Island. And he was like, "Hey, do you like comics?" And I said, "Well, used to when I was a kid." And he said, "Do you like Batman?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, he was my favorite." He goes, "Here, read this." And he gave me this graphic novel, and it was The Dark Knight Returns. And after reading that book, I was back because it was just
That's a hard one not to like, okay, now I got to read something else.
Oh yeah. It was kind of like the first experience of a drug that you could, you're always going to try to chase that for the rest of your comic reading life, so to speak. Right. And rarely do you find something of that quality that had such an impact on me, because it really made a lot of sense. It presented a Batman that actually kind of made sense. Like he wasn't, like the 1970s, you need to understand, they're telling stories about Batman openly consulting on crime scenes with Commissioner Gordon and talking to police officers. He's a vigilante, man. He's a freaking vigilante.
Right, yeah.
That's not cool. It's like they don't allow that type of thing. And now suddenly, Frank Miller is showing us a Batman who's working outside. He's working in the shadows and outside the law, so to speak. And that it just really kind of made sense. So that kind of was like a second birth. I never intended to write comics. I read them from that point on. From the mid 80s on, I was collecting, and that's where my comic book collection really starts, is in the mid 80s. I didn't really plan on getting into it, but I ended up having this nightmare that became the basis for volume 1 of The Shepherd. And that is what kind of got me into becoming a comic book creator. So that is in a nutshell the multiple origin stories.
I like that.
So describe this dream that kind of inspired it then, because that's interesting. I don't think I've heard this before.
Yeah, it's on, like, if you were to purchase volume 1, I'm plugging volume 1 at scoutcomics.com, by the way. If you were to get that, it has an essay that kind of gives you the Reader's Digest version of that. But the basics of it is that I dreamed that my oldest son, who was about 16-ish at the time, 15, 16 at the time, I dreamed that he had died of a drug overdose. And and the horror of that, because my son and I are very close. I've always been very close. I was kind of a stay-at-home dad while I was working on my doctorate, and he was, with me when I was, let's just put it this way. At 2 years old, he was going around telling people that he couldn't play with them. He had to go write his dissertation. So that'll give you an idea of what he was hearing from me, at that age. No lie, that's a true story, by the way.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
2 years old.
I mean, I can remember
dissertation.
I can remember putting him down as a baby for the morning nap, and then furiously reading a scholarly 25 page scholarly article, just blasting through it. And then he'd wake up and I'd feed him and I'd be taking notes on that article that I read. And then he'd go down for his afternoon nap, and then I'd blast another article. And, and then, not long after that, my wife would come home and I'd hand him off to her and then run to my office and be in there till 2 o'clock in the morning, and that was my life. But we'd gotten very close because obviously I was taking care of him. And obviously fathers, I think, are largely close with their sons. So, but dreaming that was terrible. And the weird part about the dream was, a lot of times when you dream something that horrific, you wake up, it jars you up, but instead, in this case, it kind of, not only did I dream he died, but it kind of, the story just kind of dragged me along, whether I wanted to go or not. And I see him in the morgue, and I see him in the funeral home, and I'm at the graveside. Oh, it was horrible. It was friggin' horrible. At the gravesite, and afterwards, I'm, dealing with his loss. And then I start to hear him calling out to me from the other side that something's gone south. He has not transitioned as he should. And in my dream, I dreamed that I went after him into the afterlife to try to save him. And, it was like a complete, I've said this before in interviews, but I would describe it as a roller coaster from hell. Put on that roller coaster and you're going to ride it to the very end. And it's just, that's the way it is. But I woke up sweating, breathing heavy. My wife's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't think you want to hear it. And she's like, well, kind of now I do. Right. And I told her, and she's like, I hate you. Why would you tell me that? She was very upset. I just told her I dreamed that our son had died of a drug overdose. It took me, basically two days to get to the point where I could actually talk to my son about it. And when I did talk to him about it, he was like, Dad, this is so cool. And I'm like, no, I don't think you really understand what cool is. This is not cool. This is 180 degrees from that.
Right.
And, but the takeaway is that he really believed from the very beginning that this needed to be something. He really felt like it could be a story. It could be, in particular, because we were reading comics that it could be that. And, he pestered me, and eventually in June of 2011, we sat together and wrote the story. And inside a month, the entire 5-issue run was written, and it just kind of flowed. And, and then in September of that year, tail end of August, early September, we started the artwork, and we ended up, getting a publisher and having Caliber Comics publish it in May of 15. And we were with Caliber for the first 5 years. We ran the first 2 volumes out with them. And then in 2020, mid 2020, we finished our contract with Caliber. And by then I had already, had really established friendships with people at Scout, because I kept bumping into them on the road. They were out in the conventions. They were,
That's
I was
how
down
you
in
and me
Florida.
met.
Yeah.
We met at C2E2 last year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm talking with them, and the more I talk with the guys at Scout, the more I really feel like we share a common viewpoint. And it was the idea that that comic book creators in a comic book company shouldn't be me. It's got to be me trying to help my brothers and sisters. It's the idea that the rising tide lifts all ships. Mm-hmm, and I really believe that. I just want to be part of a team. I don't think that the world begins and ends on my front door. I want to help other people grow. I want to learn from them. I want to help them learn from me. I feel like I've got something to give in terms of literature, in terms of my background and study of literature. And I am happy to see other people succeed. I really am. I'm very happy, very pleased to see other people get recognition that they deserve. And Scout really feels that way too. The leadership at Scout is very committed to trying to help other people. And they're all creators themselves, so that they understand the grind. They understand how difficult it is.
Right. They're not just a bunch of corporate bigwigs sitting in an office somewhere collecting a check.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's, quite frankly, as a independent comic book creator, or even a small press, because I'm small press, that's what Scout is, small press. The truth of the matter is that it's very difficult to do, and creating the book is the easiest thing you'll do. I repeat that for you. Writing The Shepherd is the easiest part of this whole thing. When you get it done, they're like, okay, now you got to find a publisher. It's like, oh God, you got to learn how to present your books to these publishers, which, by the way, is a whole nother skill set that you don't know. Okay. And so you get it to the publisher, and then you think to yourself, okay, that's it, I'm done. No, you are not done. Now you have to learn how to market your book.
I would say now you're your own marketing team.
Yeah, you're going to be your primary. Even if you have a publisher, your publisher is largely going to be a smaller press. They don't have unlimited money. So
Yeah,
you
they're
are
not a
going to have
Marvel
to
or a
take the
DC with
lead.
billions to go back on.
Yeah, and you guys know this from promoting, the Indie Inkwell. Who is going to be the primary promoters of it? You guys.
Mhm.
And hopefully us creators will help you do it too as we come on. But ultimately, this is a whole nother skill set. So in other words, we're taking for granted that you guys are personable, that you're knowledgeable about comics, that you love comics, that you're good at communicating. All that we're going to assume. Now you got to learn how to market. It's like, I didn't take any marketing classes, not one, because I didn't think I was going into business. I was going to be a professor. So guess what? I know nothing about marketing. So now you've got to learn from your brothers and sisters around you, and just, pray to God that you meet the right people who are willing to share. And thankfully, the one thing that's wonderful about the comics industry is there are a lot of really good people who really care about other people and are willing to share their wisdom and impart it on you and save you from cataclysmic failure.
Yeah.
So that's true. Anyway,
man,
but yeah. Other than that,
that's awesome. And like to hear you like say all this, we can really see like the passion like in your voice. Because like JJ said, like every time we've reviewed a Scout comic or just like read, Scout comics for fun, we always see the passion from this publisher, from just the work in general. Like the stuff that y'all are putting out is truly works of art, and it deserves more recognition. That is the reason why we started this show.
Well, thanks. It's appreciated. It really is, because any help for us is, we're grateful. We really are. And I will tell you, the passion that you see is very real, not just from me, but I want you to understand, like our president, for example, James Hake, and our publisher, Richard Rivera, both those guys are Floridians, or people, one in Kissimmee and the other in Richard's in Kissimmee, and James is in Fort Myers near, of course, the Scout HQ. But these guys are heart and soul. James doesn't get one single penny from Scout for all the work that man does. And Scout is literally a second job that he does. And even he rolls his royalties into the company. So he's doing this as pure passion project. And Richard, I teased Richard, he's basically slave labor for the company. It's like, oh, you need some new ad designed? That'll be Richard Rivera handling that. You want a whatnot show? Yeah, Richard will get that. You want an editor, or you want somebody to evaluate covers? Yeah, Richard's got that covered. No problem at all.
Jack of all trades.
But yeah, that's the kind of guys they are. I will tell you, not only do I love the work that I do as an editor in terms of working with the creative people all over the world, literally all over the world, but I love the people that I work with because of their passion, because of their commitment. We have our legal team, Lisa and Trent Miller. Marcus Guillory, who's in design, heads up design. Sean Callahan, who helps with the putting the books together and that type of thing, helping in design. Of course, you mentioned Nicole DeAndrea, who handles our digital side of our company, as well as edits a lot of books and writes a really wonderful book called Road Trip to Hell, which I've
had her talk about that twice on
that's a fun book, by the way. It's Road Trip to Hell. I'd compare that to, if you liked Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yes, yes, that's a perfect thing to compare it to.
Keanu Reeves. Yeah, you'll love that book. It's. I've been pestering her because she's written the first story arc, and I want her to, get a move on and finish the second
I
arc.
told her the same thing. I was like, you need to finish it.
And not so I can edit it, so I can friggin' read it.
Right, exactly.
I'm not that altruistic. I want to read the story. So yeah, but we're really fortunate in the people that we have that love this industry, that want to create amazing stories and just are passionate about doing it. And like I said, it's not just the job, but who I'm doing it with that matters, and I feel lucky that I get to work with these people. So anyway,
that's awesome.
Don't tell them I said that, because then I'll never
right. You don't want to feed the ego too much. But how many people get to say that they actually enjoy where they work and the people they work with? Like, that's pretty rare.
And that, by the way, that includes even the front office, the team at Scout HQ. Sam Bortnicker heads up that. Colin McHugh. We've got so many people there that are just great people and creators themselves. Like one of our guys there, Colin. He does the Ballad of Gordon Barleycorn, which, by the way, if you have not read that, you owe it to yourself. That is a hilarious book. And by the way, if he's watching this, Colin, you owe me issue 2. Get a move on.
Oh.
Well, that commercial was brought to you by the editorial dictatorship of Scout.
I love it. So let's get into your stuff and talk about this new. Is it a new volume or spinoff?
Yeah, it came out already. Obviously, we're doing a Kickstarter to create a hardcover compilation of this volume. So this represents volume 3 of The Shepherd. There's one issue that's missing with that. You showed volume 3. The hardcover actually includes four comics. The first 3 that you showed there, which is the Valentine.
Here we go. Here's the other one.
Yep, and then that's called The Pit, and that's a one-off. So together, it's I think a little over 100-page graphic novel, and then there'll be art galleries and that type of thing. But yeah, I'm really proud of those stories. The Valentine, just giving a quick summary here, the Valentine is a story where it's intended, well, the entire volume really is intended as a new on-ramp into the story. So
I would say it seemed like a nice starting point for somebody who's never read the first 2 volumes. They can kind of jump in here and it pretty much makes sense. Like there's not a whole lot to figure out.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's intended to do. What we found was that if you read that first volume, you're introduced to the family of Lawrence Miller, who becomes the shepherd. He has 3 children and a wife. His oldest son is involved in the major story that it takes place in volume 1. But we find out that his 2 youngest children, Lexi and Nico, actually have paranormal abilities. Essentially, they can see the dead. And as we, moved away from that, we said to ourselves, we feel like there's tremendous storytelling potential. And we were thinking, my son and I were thinking about the role of the shepherd. And we felt that the shepherd should tell stories in the afterlife. We should be doing adventures in the afterlife, essentially, if you will, the purgatory. But we also love traditional ghost stories that involve living human beings encountering spectral apparitions and that type of thing. So we said, well, we have these 2 kids that we've already established as having paranormal abilities that they can see the dead. Why not tell ghost stories with them as the primary protagonists? And so that's really that seminal idea was the engine for this volume. And of course, I'm a big fan of The Sixth Sense.
Okay.
I love that movie. I love the idea of a child being able to see into the other realm, that there's a certain purity that children have, and honesty that they have, and for them to be able to see and interact with spirits, I thought was really kind of a cool concept. So we knew that we had something we liked, and now it was just simply a matter to tell stories. And then we decided that there was going to be, the primary story was going to be what we call the Valentine. And it was going to be about a little girl who is taken by a serial killer. And she escapes the serial killer. And when she was taken, it's in early February. And she's in the process of making, she's like in 2nd grade. She's in the process of making a Valentine, as you see depicted here, for her mother for Valentine's Day, as little kids are wont to do in class. And she's taken. And when she escapes the serial killer, that Valentine is left behind where he took her. And she comes to Lexi and Nico and asks for their help, as you see depicted here. This is great, as you see.
I tried not to give too much, but I tried to get some major points of issue 1 on here.
Yeah,
for sure.
I appreciate it. But she basically asked for their help to go get that Valentine so that she can give it to her mother. And that's that's the basic plot of the story. That artwork that you saw there is done, I think, quite beautifully by a colleague and artist, Jaime Martinez Rodriguez, Spanish artist, and he did all of that, as well as the covers that you displayed for that. So, which I love his cover art. It's he does
beautiful.
It's so clean too.
Oh yeah, and he does a lot of horror work. I actually met him through another Spanish friend of mine, Juan Torres, who is going to be. Juan Torres did Nancy in Hell for Image Comics, and he also has done books like The Veil, Roman Ritual, Straight Jacket, and here's the best news of all: he's coming to Scout. He's bringing his stuff to Scout.
Awesome.
Yeah, in January, this month we'll be seeing the first of it, a series that he calls Rogues. And Rogues is like a series about like these pirates who are constantly getting into one kind of like crazy adventure after another. It's a little bit of Ash Williams and a little bit of Xena Warrior Princess and a little bit of Hercules, those television series, mix them all up with a good dose of humor. And that's basically what Rogues is all about. Swords and sorcery and shenanigans.
It sounds like TV from the 90s, which is what I
gonna
grew
be
up
fun.
on. So
Yeah, it'll be fun. People are going to enjoy it. But anyway, Juan does a ton of horror stuff, and he'll be bringing that to Scout as well. But that's how I met Jaime, because Jaime is the artist for his work called Roman Ritual. And that's basically, it's an exorcist type book. It imagines that the Pope himself is possessed by a demon because of these terrible crimes that have taken place within the Vatican. He himself has not committed those crimes, but those crimes are associated in the walls of the Vatican. And that's an amazing book. And Jaime just knocked it out of the park on that. So I knew when I was looking for a horror artist that he'd be good, to tap. And he really delivered, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I love the did he also do like the coloring on it
yes
as well?
Yeah, which is a simple color palette. It's kind of got that kind of a ghostly feel to it.
Yeah, it's not quite black and white, but it's also not really full color. It's more of like a chromatic kind of color scheme.
Yeah. I really like that. It really adds to like the vibe that the story was going for.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
but then when the color does pop in, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, and we keyed it too. You'll notice if you read the Valentine, the colors that we use are all variations of pink to the red spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if you look at it, we kind of stole a little bit from The Sixth Sense, because if you remember the Sixth Sense movie, when you saw the color red, that had there was supernatural afoot.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
As an homage to that film, which makes it sound less bad than stealing, we decided that we would use that color spectrum of pink, that when pink is seen, you see it's definitely a supernatural experience, but it's not dangerous, it's not angry, it's not painful. But when you see the red, it is all of those things. It's painful, angry, elevated, and so you see that when you see those colors, that the more mild the color is, you have that sense of the supernatural at foot, but the more intense it gets, it's because there's a good reason for that in the story. So that's the color palette that we chose to use for that. So and I feel good about it. I like it. I feel like it kind of like plays with people's kind of sensibilities, if you will. So
yeah, because it almost kind of like lures you in, because it's like very soft and subtle at first, and then when like you want to actually hit them with something, you can do it right there at the end of the color palette with that bright red.
Yeah,
and it adds another little punch to it, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. I'm glad that it worked that way for you as a reader, because that's certainly what we were aiming at. But yeah, I love that. And then, like I said, after that 3-part story, there is a one-off, which is called The Pit, and this is the primary cover A for that one. There are variant covers as well, 2 variant covers, and I have those if you want to see them. It's yeah. These are the 2 variant covers.
Okay. Very
You know,
Scooby-Doo-ish almost.
yeah, I mean, it kind of has that vibe
It
to
did
it.
have that vibe a little bit.
Um,
Yeah.
and we kind of played with that a little bit on purpose. The subject matter of the pit is that the children are visited by a ghost dog, a dog who has died in the dog fighting pit, which is where we get the title. And the dog has basically come to them and asking for help to rescue the other dogs that are left behind in these kennels. And I'll be honest, when this story was suggested, because the pit is different in that for the first time, I'm joined by another co-writer, my daughter, Alexandria, or Lexi, the one who's
Is that why the Molinari at the bottom? I was curious.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
She's actually co-writing this. And
That's
I thought it
awesome.
would be fun to do something with her. She had said that she'd like to do that. And I said, okay, let's do that. And what kind of a story would you like to tell? She's like, well, I don't care, but though I have one proviso. And I was like, okay, what's that? It's got to have a lot of dogs. And I'm like, it's got to have a lot of dogs. Okay. I have no idea what we'll do. And I didn't have any ideas. And it was several days that passed. I remember I went out on a run and the idea hit me just like a lightning bolt. It was, that we'll do something with dog fighting. And I got to confess to you guys that I thought I knew what dog fighting was, and I had no real clue. I thought, oh, these dogs, they fight each other, No, it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
As I started to research it, I literally had no clue about how bad it was. I mean, the kind of things that are done in these circles is monstrous, to say the least. They literally file the dog's teeth so that they'll do more damage. So they'll be sharp, razor sharp, and
So
hurt
when I
each other.
saw that, I was wondering, like, is this something that like they would act like people that participate in dog fighting, like that's something they would do? Because I've never known that. And so when I saw that scene where he was filing the dog's teeth, I was like, dude, do they actually do stuff like this? But now I know.
Sadly they do. And worse, like even the dogs, you notice how you see these dogs, their ears are cut,
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like, certain dogs, they like Doberman, for example, they have their ears cropped. So they have these like triangular ears, and it's a certain aesthetic for that dog. Boxers can sometimes have their ears cut like that. But I'm talking about when they cut their ears to their like nothing left. There's just this little like nub. And the reason why they do it is so that the opposing animal has nothing to grab onto. Because in these fights, they'll rip the dog's ears off. They'll tear away. I've seen pictures because, the police will go in and bust these rings. And then the Humane Society will come get these poor animals out of there. And these animals will have like pieces of their face is literally like ripped away where you can see the teeth are exposed. I mean, I had no clue. So I tell you all this to explain why we went with the more cartoony style of art, because I just thought this is about such a horrible thing that I didn't know if I wanted to go that dark, because if we were going to really depict it the way it is, I just didn't want to do it, because I love dogs. I mean, I have two boxers of my own, and my daughter has 2 dogs, and
I have 2 dogs.
I got 4 dogs running around here. They're literally outside the door of my office right now because they want to come in. They need to be with me. And I'm like, no, not during this, because my boxers, who's like 65 pounds, she thinks she's a lap dog. Both of them do. So they got to be,
like
so
all up in your face and in your space.
Yeah. The boxers literally have no sense of personal space, so.
I'll say pitties are the same way, man. Like a pit bull will just be like on
they
you
cannot
the entire time.
And I love them for it. I mean, they're great. They're wonderful animals.
Yes.
But that's why I went with that style of art, because I just was so horrified by what I had found. I mean, both of us were Berto, neither of us really knew. We're sitting here. I can remember being in the office at this computer and watching the videos of, that were done by, police some you can go online and see them where the police are showing you the places,
like undercovers, and then
yeah,
you see all kinds of stuff.
it's bad stuff. And it was interesting because in these dogfighting circles, they often, because that's illegal, they often do other illegal things like illegal gun trades or drugs, or so there's a lot of crime going on in addition to the abuse of these animals. So there's a lot of danger associated with it. So, we're talking about a story in the pit of 2 children going in the middle of the night and staging a midnight raid to try to save dogs, which is insane. I mean, it's,
oh yeah, real world, that would not end very well for those kids.
It's not going to go well, so it's, I felt that let's try to go for like something a little bit more Scooby-Doo-ish, to lighten the mood a little bit, because the story was just it was just too intense otherwise,
I mean, I feel like even still, you still can feel like the emotions of the whole thing, especially like myself as a dog owner, right? Just seeing like, even though the art style was a little bit more cartoony, just seeing like the pain and the suffering that those animals were going through. And then while I'm reading this, I can literally look over it and I'm seeing my dogs,
Yeah.
So it's like,
say relatable is relatable. It doesn't matter the art style.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, facts, man. And it's
No,
like,
that was definitely a different experience than what I thought it was going to be. Because I'll be honest with you, and I laugh about this, Berto and I laugh about this, is that when we originally wrote this volume, both the Valentine and the Pit, we were thinking that this was going to be shepherd stories that'll be aimed at kids. Boy, was that a failure.
Yeah, not so much.
Wow.
I don't think you guys hit the nail on the head with that one.
But we have shepherd stories. We started off, we wanted shepherd stories aimed at kids, and we ended up with shepherd stories that involve kids. That's literally as close as we got to it. So, wow. That was, I realized that I don't think I can write for children. I'm like, it doesn't work. So
I mean, some people can't, I guess.
I mean, even like, and I know we don't want to go like too like spoilery, but like even with the Valentine story, especially what happens, to that
hang on,
just
in case, before you go further. Boom, spoiler warning.
Yeah, I mean, of course, what happens to the little girl. She is a victim of a cruel crime, a very cruel crime, and for myself, like I don't have any kids, but I could just imagine like being a parent and then just thinking like, what if that's like your child was in that type of situation? But one thing I do want to say, even though that subject matter it's pretty dark, right? It's dark. I love the ending and how you gave it, even there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, right? And the fact that that story still ended on like in a hopeful way, I I really like that, because a lot of writers, they struggle with like tiptoeing
Not
different
ending on a
tones.
down note.
Right, exactly. And man, I just love that at the end with the little girl's mom and how that family basically like took her in, and it was awesome.
I appreciate that. I really do. It's kind of funny, is that The Shepherd turns out to be a series that's very much based on hope. It's true. It's a theme that goes through all of the stories. And it's funny because if you knew my wife and myself, if you were talking with her, she was here. My wife is always been the cup half full. Always. She goes, everything she's been through in her life, she always sees the silver lining, always. And she's just like a sometimes annoyingly positive. And I tend to be the cup half empty. I have no idea where all this came from. Perhaps deep down there's this hopeful person that just wants to get out.
I mean, maybe that's the subconscious. I mean, the original story did come to you in a dream, so maybe it's some subconscious stuff trying to come out.
But we definitely do go through the tunnels. We go through the darkness. But I do think that consistently The Shepherd is a story that is always pointing towards, something that that's better. That's something
Mhm.
that there'll be a resolution, that we're not abandoned, that we're not left. That's really the character of the shepherd himself, is that going after the ones that are the most lost, and saying, I'm not giving up on you. We'll find a way. There is a way, and we'll find it. And I think we need that in this world. Oh God, we need that.
Especially
Oh
after
yes.
the last couple of years. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Oh yes, we definitely need that. That I feel like as a people, we're just so caught in our own mindsets and all of that. We need to come together and like help each other out. I think that's what's missing. But I guess that's a topic for another day,
Well,
right?
I think we do. I think we can, and I think we do. We see it all the time. I just think a lot of times we don't tell those stories. We don't tell the stories
True.
about people helping other people. It happens all the time.
The horrible things and the horrible people that are always so loud online, that's just it. They're the loudest.
Yeah.
True.
That doesn't mean
Yeah.
they're the most.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. There are a lot of really good people doing a lot of things, and they're not necessarily drawing, having the camera on themselves saying, hey, watch me while I do this.
Right.
They're more about the work of just trying to help others, trying to make a difference in this world, try to leave it a little bit better than we found it. Yeah. So that's, I think that's kind of the heart of the shepherd. I'm very excited. This is going to be a big year. It looks like 2024. Obviously we've got this Kickstarter going, but we're also scheduled to have volume 4, which is called The Tether. That is scheduled to come out in April. And there's going to be a brand new, that'll be the trade comes out in April for that. And that's a 134 page novel. And then it looks like in May, James has asked us to start volume 5, to start rolling that out. And I'll be very intrigued to see what how people respond to volume 5. It's called The Burning Maid. And The Burning Maid is about Joan of Arc. And I may have talked to you about this before, JJ.
I was going to say that sounded familiar. I was
Yeah.
like, I think you've mentioned this to me before.
Well, the basic idea with this story is that Joan of Arc, it would have been May 30th of 1431. She was burned at the stake. And she had been trying to free France and unify France and throw the English out of France. And she was eventually captured in battle and put on trial by the church, where she was accused of heresy, which essentially meant that she was wearing men's clothes while she was out on her military campaigns. And they burned her at the stake. And so I imagine, what if in the afterlife, she doesn't know anything that happened after that? Because what happened after it, there was eventually, a couple decades later, there was a retrial. She was found innocent. Her name was cleared. And several centuries later, in the early 19th century, if I'm not mistaken, she was made a saint, declared a saint by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Imagine she doesn't know any of that. Imagine that all she knows is her betrayal. And so in the afterlife, she's angry and bitter and vengeful. And I imagine she's hunting down the people that did this to her and making them do this trial over and over, like a record, playing over and over again.
Oh,
and at the end, when it comes time to be burned, she flips the script and burns them. And she just makes them go through this over and over again. So there's this sense of this monster that she's become in the afterlife. And the story goes, her historical story goes, that she heard voices, that she claimed that angels appeared to her. The most significant of those was the Archangel Michael. So in our story, the Archangel Michael comes to the shepherd in the afterlife and asks him for help. And the shepherd, along with his colleagues, are inserted into Joan's story and trying to help turn it a different way. And it's going to be a 4-part story, and that's coming out. The first one will come out in May.
So
Okay.
I'm excited for that.
I like
that
that.
sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
So catch this. Here's the genre. It is courtroom horror.
I love it.
I don't know if that's a thing, but I just invented
it. Is now.
If it isn't.
It is now. Hey,
that's what it is. It is a court, because here's the interesting part about this is the trial transcripts of Joan of Arc's trial are available and exist today. So
they're in like archives all over the place.
Yeah, you can actually probably get them online. When I was writing the story, I had, you know, my script here and the trial transcripts right here. So the story is very historically accurate.
Right.
And in many of the cases when Joan speaks, it's actually her voice coming out of the transcripts. So it's an authentic historical voice too, as well as being horrible. Right. You know, as well as the horror of it. But here's the interesting thing about this is I write horror because, I mean, I'm writing ghost stories, right?
Right.
I become more and more convinced that you don't have to invent horrible situations, that history will give them to you.
Yeah, there's plenty to choose from.
Oh yeah,
which is really sad, you know. It's
like,
but true, you know. So that's kind of, not every shepherd story is that, but I mean, I am, you know, you saw some of that historical components, like if you read volume 2 of The Shepherd, The Path of Souls, that's very grounded in history, because basically the second volume of The Shepherd, The Path of Souls, it envisions a hospital in the afterlife for the souls of warriors that are suffering from post-traumatic stress in the afterlife.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Other than that, it's a light topic. So
right, just, you know, your standard PTSD and death.
Exactly.
Yeah, none too bad.
No, yeah, not too bad.
So before we wrap things up and let you get on with your evening, is there anything else that you kind of want to plug or promote? I know this has been a big long commercial for Scout Comics.
Yeah, no, I'm happy.
Not sponsored, open to it though.
I'm definitely pleased. We are, as I said, we are doing a Kickstarter to support this volume 3, and anybody who would be willing to support us, you can go to Kickstarter and you can sign up to follow us. We're going to get ready to launch January 30th. And there'll be a month-long
sign up for that follow info right there at the QR code on your screen. And if you are listening to us the day after this airs, I will make sure that there is a link down in the description of this episode on whatever podcast platform you guys are listening to us on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
100%. You can also go to this QR code. I know it looks the same, but I promise it's a different one. It gets your copy of The Shepherd, the Valentine issue number 1 at that QR code right there on your screen. And if you want to see what all the hype about Scout Comics is, at that QR code right there on your screen, you can go over and check out everything that they have on their website.
Excellent. And then a lot of good stuff to choose from.
Oh, tons. I mean, like, there's a reason I've named them my number 1 indie publisher last year. So just saying, guys, if you trust my opinion about anything, trust that.
Thanks.
If you guys want to support the show directly, you can go to our merch store at that QR code right there on your screen. The Indie Inkwell merch store. We've got shirts, we've got hats, we've got hoodies, we've got stickers. And if you don't want any of our stuff, maybe you were going to check out what our sponsors got. intotheam.com/JJ Comics for 10% off your order. They're also offering a 40% off site-wide discount right now on top of all their bundle deals, so you can get things up to 80-90% off if you add everything together. All right. Is there anything else that you guys want to plug before we get out of here?
I think I'm good.
None much. Everybody know where to follow me. Longbox Entertainment on Instagram, TikTok, actually most social media sites. So yeah.
Except he's not on Twitter, even though I'm constantly
I will make a Twitter. One day I will make a Twitter. Okay.
One day.
One day he says. Keep it vague. Keep it vague. One day.
There you go. Keep them wanting, but don't leave them expecting a certain date.
Exactly.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much, Andrea, for coming on here. My name is JJ. That's Michael. Andrea, let's go ahead and get out of here, everybody. Please be safe, be kind, and take it easy.